Harrison Gordon had always prided himself on being a perceptive man. As an artist, he lived in a world of nuances, where every stroke of paint revealed something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface. But nothing prepared him for the subtle dissonance he felt in his marriage. It began with small, seemingly insignificant changes that he initially brushed off. A new perfume he didn't recognize, late nights that didn't add up, and an odd tension that lingered between him and Kinsley. It was at the charity ball where Harrison's uneasy feeling crystallized into something more tangible. The evening had started with all the trappings of a perfect night: elegant gowns, polished shoes, and the soft hum of conversations mingling with classical music. Harrison had expected a pleasant evening with Kinsley, a chance to unwind and connect. Instead, he found himself grappling with a growing knot of suspicion. As he sipped his champagne, Harrison noticed Kinsley's eyes lingering on a newcomer, a man with an effortless charm who seemed to captivate everyone around him. Harrison caught their eyes meeting more than once, each glance charged with an unmistakable flirtation. It wasn't just his imagination. There was an energy between them that was hard to ignore. "What's going on with you two?" Harrison asked Kinsley later that night, his tone tinged with both curiosity and unease. Kinsley, with a practiced smile, replied, "Oh, nothing. He's just a charming guest. I was introducing him around." Harrison murmured, trying to sound nonchalant while feeling a pang of jealousy. He was willing to let it go, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The following morning, Harrison's concerns deepened. He was preparing breakfast when he received a phone call from an old friend, Eleanor, who had been a close confidant. Her voice was tight with concern. "Harrison, I need to tell you something," Eleanor began, her words heavy with unspoken distress. "That man from the ball, Beau Martin, I had a run-in with him a few years ago. He was charming, yes, but he was also deceitful. He led me into a disastrous affair that nearly ruined my life. I just thought you should know." Harrison felt his heart sink. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but he struggled to reconcile Eleanor's warning with the woman he loved. He forced himself to stay calm. "Thank you for telling me, Eleanor. I'll keep that in mind." As the days passed, Harrison's unease grew into something more concrete. Kinsley was acting increasingly distant, her late-night work calls becoming more frequent, and her insistence on keeping her phone screen away from him raised more red flags. Then, the inevitable confrontation occurred when he found a text message on her phone, a message from Beau, suggesting they meet up over the weekend. The text was innocuous but hinted at something more intimate. Harrison confronted Kinsley that evening. The air in their living room was thick with tension. "Kinsley, we need to talk," he said, his voice steady but strained. Kinsley looked up from her book, her eyes flashing with defensiveness. "What's this about, Harrison? I found a text message on your phone. From Beau Martin." Kinsley's expression shifted from surprise to anger. "What does that matter? He's just a friend who you seem to have been spending a lot of time with lately," Harrison said, "and who Eleanor warned me about. She had a bad experience with him." Kinsley's face flushed, and she stood up, pacing. "Eleanor's just bitter. She doesn't know what she's talking about." Harrison's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "It's not just about the text message. It's everything. The changes, the distance. I'm not blind, Kinsley. Something's going on." Kinsley sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "Look, Harrison, it's complicated. I didn't want to hurt you, but what?" Harrison's voice cracked with the weight of his hurt. "You're having an affair, aren't you?" Kinsley's silence was damning. In the following days, the confrontation had an explosive impact. Harrison took decisive action. He sold their shared car, changed the locks on their home, and started preparing divorce papers. When Kinsley returned from her weekend away, she was met with an empty house and a stack of legal documents. Harrison was waiting for her, his face a mask of steely resolve. "Kinsley, I think we're done here. I filed for divorce. Kinsley's eyes widened, her voice rising in disbelief. You can't just do this. You're ruining everything. I'm protecting my daughter and myself from the mess you've created, Harrison said firmly. You wanted to betray me, and now you'll face the consequences. The fallout was swift and severe. The news of Kinsley's affair spread like wildfire through their tight-knit community, bringing with it a wave of gossip and judgment. Harrison found a grim satisfaction in seeing her face the public scorn she had tried to avoid. As the days turned into weeks, Harrison focused on rebuilding his life and protecting his daughter. His resolve to seek justice for the wrongs done to him and his family grew stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, Kinsley grappled with the collapse of her carefully constructed life and the embarrassment that now shadowed her every step. Harrison Gordon had hoped that confronting Kinsley would bring closure, but as the days dragged on, he found himself sinking deeper into a quagmire of deceit. The once clear lines of trust and fidelity had blurred into a tangled web of secrets and lies. Kinsley's betrayal was only the beginning. As Harrison began to untangle the threads of her deception, he discovered an even more insidious layer to her treachery. The first indication came through a mutual acquaintance, Greg, who worked with Kinsley at the sports agency. Greg was one of those people who couldn't keep a secret if his life depended on it, and it was his casual offhand comments that began to piece together the full extent of Kinsley's affair. One morning, as Harrison was dropping off his daughter at school, he ran into Greg in the parking lot. Greg, looking unusually uncomfortable, approached Harrison with a hesitant smile. "Hey Harrison, how's it going?" Greg asked, shifting nervously. "Can't complain," Harrison replied, watching Greg closely. "But I'm curious, what's the deal with Kinsley and Bo Martin? I've heard some things that don't add up." Greg's face flushed, and he glanced around before speaking in a low voice. "Look, I don't want to get involved, but Kinsley and Bo have been. Well, let's just say there's more going on than meets the eye. They've been spending a lot of time together, even outside work." Harrison's heart raced as he took in the implications of Greg's words. "So, you're saying there's an affair?" Greg nodded reluctantly. "I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, it's been pretty obvious to those of us who've been around. They've been very close." The confirmation stung, but it also fueled Harrison's resolve to uncover the full truth. He knew he needed to gather more evidence, and he turned to Eleanor, the friend who had warned him initially. Eleanor, still shaken from her own past with Bo, agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop. As Harrison and Eleanor settled into a booth, the atmosphere was heavy with shared understanding and unspoken pain. Eleanor's eyes were shadowed with concern as she spoke. "Harrison, I know this is hard, but there's something else you need to know," Eleanor said, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw Kinsley and Bo together more than once, and it wasn't just casual meetings. They were very intimate." Harrison's expression hardened. "I've heard as much, but why didn't you tell me sooner?" Eleanor sighed. "I wanted to protect you from the pain. I didn't want to believe it myself, but I know how much you care about your family. I felt you deserved to know the truth, no matter how much it hurts." "Thank you for being honest," Harrison said, his voice low but resolute. "I need to get to the bottom of this. There's something else. Kinsley and Bo have been plotting something. I can feel it." Eleanor's eyes widened with concern. "Plotting? What do you mean?" "I'm not entirely sure yet," Harrison admitted, "but I suspect they're working together to undermine my position, possibly even to manipulate the custody situation. I need to find out what they're planning before it's too late." As Harrison's investigation continued, he uncovered disturbing patterns in Kinsley and Bo's interactions. Through a combination of surveillance and digging through shared files, he discovered that Kinsley had been documenting exaggerated accounts of Harrison's supposed shortcomings as a father. These files, cleverly disguised as work-related documents, were clearly intended to support her bid for custody. One evening, As Harrison reviewed the incriminating evidence in his home office, his phone rang. It was Kinsley, her voice strained and defensive. "Harrison, we need to talk," she said. "I don't think there's much left to say." Harrison replied curtly. "I've seen the files, Kinsley. I know about the lies you've been telling." Kinsley's silence was filled with guilt and anger. "I'm trying to protect myself. You know how hard it is to be in this position." "Protect yourself," Harrison said, his voice rising. "By lying and plotting against me. I'm not just going to stand by and let you take everything away." As Kinsley's attempts to justify her actions grew increasingly desperate, Harrison knew that the battle ahead would be grueling. The once trusted partnership had devolved into a bitter struggle, where every conversation felt like a negotiation in a high-stakes game of chess. The depth of their deceit was staggering, and Harrison's determination to expose the truth only grew stronger. In the following days, Harrison's efforts to build a case against Kinsley and Bo intensified. He meticulously documented every piece of evidence, every lie, and every act of betrayal. The stakes were high, and the conflict was far from over. Harrison was prepared for a long and arduous fight, knowing that the resolution of this personal drama would not only define his future, but also the future of his daughter. Harrison Gordon had always believed that where there was smoke, there was fire. The more he uncovered about Kinsley and Bo, the more convinced he became that their affair was just the tip of a much deeper and more troubling situation. The rumors and clues he had gathered pointed to a far more elaborate scheme involving a secret affair with a doctor, a betrayal that went beyond mere infidelity and threatened to unravel his life even further. The initial clues came in dribs and drabs: discreet phone calls, subtle changes in Kinsley's behavior, and hushed conversations that she thought were out of earshot. But Harrison knew better. He'd always had a knack for noticing the smallest details, and this case was no different. He began to suspect that Bo Martin wasn't the only player in this sordid drama. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Harrison hired a private investigator, Marcus, a grizzled professional with a reputation for digging up dirt. Marcus's office was a cluttered space filled with stacks of files, old photographs, and coffee stains. Harrison sat across from him, holding a stack of documents he had already compiled. "Marcus, I need you to find out everything you can about Kinsley's recent activities," Harrison said. "I have reason to believe there's another person involved. Someone from her work. A doctor, I think." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A doctor, huh? Well, if there's smoke, there's bound to be fire. I'll get on it. But you know, these things can take time." "I understand," Harrison replied. "I just need you to be thorough. Every detail counts." Over the next few days, Marcus conducted a thorough investigation, tracking Kinsley's movements and scrutinizing her interactions with colleagues. The results were both confirming and chilling. Harrison received a call from Marcus one afternoon, the investigator's voice grave and steady. "Harrison, I've got something for you," Marcus said. "I've been tracking Kinsley and her activities. She's been spending an unusual amount of time with Dr. Nathan Reed, a prominent local physician. They've been meeting at a private clinic, and there's more." "What more?" Harrison interrupted, his pulse quickening. Marcus hesitated. "I've obtained copies of appointment records and some surveillance photos. It seems Dr. Reed has been seeing Kinsley outside of his professional capacity. There are also indications that they've been involved romantically. I've even got a few photos of them together at a restaurant, looking quite intimate." Harrison's mind raced. "That's exactly what I suspected. Can you get me copies of those documents and photos? I'll have them sent to you," Marcus assured him. "But remember, this kind of evidence can be delicate. We need to handle it carefully." When Harrison reviewed the evidence, his heart sank further. The photographs showed Kinsley and Dr. Reed engaged in what was clearly a romantic dinner, their body language betraying a level of intimacy that went beyond mere friendship. The appointment records revealed multiple visits, with notes that hinted at a personal relationship. The implications were staggering. If Kinsley and Dr. Reed had been involved in a covert affair, it not only jeopardized Harrison's custody battle, but also cast a shadow over the integrity of the entire situation. It was a betrayal on multiple levels. Determined to confront the issue head-on, Harrison scheduled a meeting with Kinsley. They met at a quiet cafe, the atmosphere tense and charged with unresolved anger. "Kinsley," Harrison began, his voice strained but controlled. "I have proof of your affair with Dr. Reed. I have photographs, appointment records, and eyewitness accounts. How could you do this?" Kinsley's face went pale, her eyes darting around as if seeking an escape. "Harrison, don't try to deny it." Harrison cut her off. "The evidence is clear. You've been deceitful, and it's affecting everything. Our family, our future." Kinsley's shoulders slumped as she finally met his gaze. "I didn't want it to come to this. I thought I could handle it without anyone finding out." "You underestimated the consequences," Harrison said, his voice firm. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about what's best for our daughter. And your actions are threatening her stability." Kinsley's voice broke. "I never meant for any of this to happen. It just got out of hand. I thought I could fix things before it came to this." Harrison shook his head. "You've created a mess that's going to take a long time to clean up. But you can't just keep running from the truth. This is the reality we're facing now." As Kinsley left, visibly shaken, Harrison couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. The web of deceit was complex, and each revelation seemed to lead to another layer of betrayal. He knew he had to continue his efforts, both to protect his daughter and to bring the full extent of Kinsley's machinations to light. The path ahead was fraught with legal battles and emotional turmoil, but Harrison was resolute. He would fight to ensure that the truth was revealed and that his family's future was safeguarded. The smoke of deception had revealed a fire of betrayal that was burning fiercely, and Harrison was prepared to confront it, no matter the cost. The days following Kinsley's confrontation were a whirlwind of heightened tensions and legal maneuvering. Harrison Gordon had made it his mission to expose the full extent of his estranged wife's deceit. Yet as he pressed forward with his case, he found himself embroiled in a game of revenge and counter-schemes that only deepened the conflict. Each revelation seemed to fuel the fire of retribution, leading to dramatic confrontations and unexpected alliances. Kinsley's desperation had reached new heights. With her position growing increasingly precarious, she began to retaliate with a series of counterattacks. Her legal team, under her direction, filed a motion accusing Harrison of misconduct and painting him as an unfit parent. The allegations were baseless but calculated to throw Harrison off balance. One afternoon, as Harrison reviewed the latest batch of legal documents, his phone rang. It was his lawyer, Linda, who had been guiding him through the legal battle. "Harrison, we have a problem," Linda said, her voice tight with concern. "Kinsley's legal team has filed new charges against you. They're claiming you've been abusive and negligent." Harrison's jaw tightened. "This is just another attempt to shift the focus. We need to counter this quickly." "What's our next move?" "We need to gather more evidence to disprove these claims," Linda advised. "And we need to find any information that can demonstrate Kinsley's true motives. It's a dirty game, but we're going to need to play it smart." As Harrison and Linda worked to fortify their defense, an unexpected ally emerged. Greg, the mutual acquaintance from Kinsley's workplace, reached out with new information. His reluctance had shifted to a sense of obligation, and he wanted to help expose the truth. "Greg, what's this about?" Harrison asked when they met at a local diner. "I've been thinking," Greg said, sliding a folder across the table. "I overheard some conversations at the office. Kinsley and Dr. Reed were involved in some shady dealings that go beyond personal matters. There are records of them conspiring to manipulate patient data for financial gain." Harrison's eyes widened as he opened the folder. Inside were documents and emails that suggested Dr. Reed's involvement in fraudulent activities, likely part of Kinsley's broader scheme. "This is incredible," Harrison said. Thank you for coming forward. This could be a game changer. Greg nodded. I just wanted to make sure the truth comes out. I'm tired of seeing people getting hurt because of lies. With this new evidence in hand, Harrison and Linda prepared for a decisive confrontation. The courtroom was set for the next hearing, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. Kinsley arrived, her face a mask of resolve, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. During the hearing, Linda presented the evidence against Kinsley, detailing the fraudulent activities and revealing the true nature of her affair with Dr. Reed. As the documents were laid bare, Kinsley's composure began to crumble. Your Honor, Kinsley's lawyer began, trying to maintain a semblance of control. These allegations are a distraction from the real issue at hand. But Linda's counter-arguments were compelling. The real issue is that Kinsley has been engaged in a deliberate scheme to undermine Harrison's credibility and manipulate the legal system for her benefit. This evidence demonstrates not only her dishonesty, but also her attempts to exploit her professional connections. As the proceedings continued, Kinsley's desperation became apparent. Her attempts to sway the court fell flat, and her emotional facade started to crack. Harrison watched as Kinsley's pride gave way to raw vulnerability. Finally, in a private moment after the hearing, Kinsley broke down. Her tears flowed freely as she stood alone in the empty courtroom, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Harrison, she cried, her voice choked with emotion. I didn't mean for any of this to get so out of hand. I was trying to fix my life, but I lost control. Harrison, though emotionally conflicted, felt a pang of sympathy. Kinsley, you've hurt a lot of people with your actions, but maybe now you see the gravity of what you've done. Kinsley looked up at him, her eyes filled with regret. I just wanted things to be different. I thought I could manage everything, but it all fell apart. As Kinsley's breakdown reached its peak, Harrison saw the full extent of her emotional turmoil. The confrontation had exposed not only the depths of her deceit, but also her profound sense of loss and remorse. With the legal battle shifting in his favor, Harrison knew the fight was far from over. The revelations had taken their toll, but they also paved the way for a new beginning. He had fought through deception and counter-schemes, uncovering truths that would ultimately shape the outcome of his custody battle and his future. The unexpected support from Greg had provided a crucial advantage, and Kinsley's breakdown had revealed the emotional cost of her actions. As Harrison prepared for the final stages of the legal battle, he was determined to see it through to the end, knowing that the truth had the power to heal and restore his family's integrity. In the midst of the turmoil, Harrison found a renewed sense of purpose. The flames of retribution had burned fiercely, but they had also illuminated the path forward. The fight for justice was far from over, but Harrison was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering resolve. After weeks of legal battles, emotional strain, and personal revelations, the resolution brought a mix of redemption and renewal. Small details, which had once seemed insignificant, had finally pieced together into a clear and compelling picture, leading to a profound change in Harrison's life. As the courtroom drama concluded, Harrison found himself sifting through the final pieces of evidence that had come to light. What had started as a suspicion had evolved into a comprehensive expose of Kinsley's deceit. Among the piles of documents and photographs, Harrison noticed a pattern he had initially overlooked: specific dates and interactions between Kinsley and Dr. Reed that connected with unusual financial transactions. One evening, as Harrison reviewed the information with Linda, his lawyer, he made a breakthrough. "Linda, look at this," he said, pointing to a series of dates and financial records. These transactions correspond with the times Kinsley and Dr. Reed were meeting. It looks like they were involved in a larger scheme, using their affair to cover up financial misconduct. Linda examined the documents and nodded. This is crucial evidence. It's a clear connection between their personal relationship and illegal activities. This will be significant in court. The public revelation of Kinsley and Dr. Reed's scandal was a media frenzy. The news outlets were abuzz with the details of their fraudulent activities, and the scandal made headlines nationwide. For Harrison, it was a bittersweet victory. The exposure cleared his name and restored his reputation, but it also cast a spotlight on the personal turmoil he had endured. In the wake of the public scandal, Harrison found himself surrounded by an outpouring of support from family and friends. The tight-knit community in their small Indiana town rallied behind him, offering words of encouragement and practical help. It was a testament to the strength of the relationships he had built over the years. One afternoon, as Harrison was going through messages of support, his mother, Martha, called him. "Harrison, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you." Martha's voice was warm and comforting. "You've handled everything with such dignity and strength. We're all here for you, no matter what." "Thanks, Mom," Harrison replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have made it through this without the support of everyone around me. It means more than you know." The final court ruling favored Harrison. The legal system had recognized the extent of Kinsley's deceit, and her attempts to manipulate the custody arrangements were deemed invalid. Harrison was awarded full custody of his daughter, and the court's decision was a significant relief. As he celebrated the legal victory with his close friends and family, a new chapter in his personal life began to unfold. Among those who stood by him was Amelia, a colleague from his firefighter days, who had offered unwavering support throughout the ordeal. Amelia had always been a friend, but as Harrison faced the aftermath of the scandal, their bond grew deeper. One evening, as they walked through the park, Harrison looked at Amelia with newfound clarity. "You've been incredible through all of this, Amelia. I don't know where I'd be without you." Amelia smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "I'm just glad I could be here for you. You've been through so much, and I'm proud of how you've handled everything." Harrison paused, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking, maybe we could be more than friends. You've shown me a kind of support and understanding that I never expected. I'd like to see where this could go." Amelia's smile widened, and she reached for his hand. "I'd like that too, Harrison. Let's take this step together." The romance that blossomed between them was a comforting new beginning for Harrison. It marked a shift from the painful past to a hopeful future, where love and companionship offered a fresh start. Their relationship provided the emotional support Harrison needed, and it symbolized his journey from facing false accusations and personal challenges to finding genuine happiness. The story of Harrison Gordon concluded with a satisfying resolution. The public scandal had been addressed, his name cleared, and his daughter's future secured. With the support of family, friends, and a new romantic partner, Harrison embraced the promise of a new chapter in his life. The perfect ending for Harrison was not just about overcoming adversity, but also about embracing new opportunities and finding love again. The trials he faced had shaped him, but they had also led him to a place of redemption and renewed hope. As he looked forward to the future, Harrison knew that he had emerged stronger, ready to build a life filled with happiness and fulfillment.